What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking game week preview. So I'm going to go through some of the key questions and topics that you've put to me for this week and obviously give my opinion. We're going to start off with captaincy in just a second. We'll have team selection tomorrow where I'll go through my free hit team as well. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. And first of all, let's talk about our sponsor for today's video. So happy to say that this video has been sponsored by NordVPN. If you don't know what a VPN is, it stands for Virtual Private Network, and essentially it helps you stay safe while you're online. So it protects your identity and stops people from being able to see what you're doing, even if you're using your home network or using a public internet space as well. And if you want to get an exclusive deal, you can just go to nordvpn.com/letstalkfpl, link in the description below as well, and it's risk-free because there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you're going to want to use NordVPN, but I thought I would list some of my favorite ones. So first of all, it's just one-click connection. If I want my computer or even my phone to think that it's in America, it just takes one click to do that. You can even set up zero-click connection as well. It's super fast. Once you click the button, it's pretty much done straight away. I'm going to show you that in just a second. And then you can access content everywhere. So if there's something you want to watch that's only available on the American Netflix, for example, you can absolutely do that. One of the things that I use it for all the time is to access apps from anywhere. So I'm in Ireland and the UK is not very far away, but there are quite a few apps which I cannot access unless I'm showing as in the UK. So I use the app on my phone, put in UK, and then bam, I can start accessing those apps which I can't get from Ireland. And obviously you could do that from different countries as well. Every major platform, so iOS, Mac iOS, Windows, Android, you can use it on all of those as well. I use it on PC and on my Android phone as well. And obviously the big one, you protect yourself online. As I use the app a lot through my phone, I thought I'd load it up and just show you just how quick it is, right? So if I want to go to the UK, I literally just click on it there, and before I've even pretty much finished talking, it's already connected. And if I disconnect and want to go further away in the world, I can just click Australia and bam, I'm connected pretty much straight away. If you want to protect yourself online, you're going to need a VPN. Check out NordVPN. Go to nordvpn.com/letstalkfpl. There's a link in the description below. Get yourself an exclusive deal. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee as well. What have you got to lose? So game week 27, right? Let's start off with captaincy, because whether you're free hitting or not, and there's going to be questions around both of those things in this video, you have to pick a captain, okay? Now, I'm always drawn towards double game week players. I wouldn't say I just go for double game week players for the sake of it, but obviously they do have two matches. The chances of getting points are heightened when you play twice, as simple as that. It doesn't mean that if Norwich had a double game week and the only options to captain were defenders that I would do it. But in this case, I think there's a few good options at Burnley that you could go for. So for me, the standout is Weghorst. I think he's done pretty well so far since he came in at Burnley in terms of getting attack and returns in FPL. We've just seen him have a double game week where I think he got like 14 points, right? He scored or got points in the first game, nothing in the second one, but overall did really well. And you get 2 bites of the cherry with 2 games, right? I know this all sounds obvious, but I feel like sometimes people need a bit of convincing. And obviously, as humans, we tend to sometimes focus on the negative. So people always bring up the likes of King and Dennis and double game weeks are overrated. But it wasn't too long ago that everyone was saying Man United were out of form. Why are we picking Man United players? Then suddenly Fernandes, Ronaldo and De Gea, etc. get double digits in their double game week, right? And I'm not saying Burnley are on a level with as Man United, right, at the same level. But I still think they're doing well right now. The results are looking good too. That's hopefully going to breed a bit of confidence within the players. So I do think that Weghorst is the best option. His expected data numbers, they're not great at Burnley so far, but it's also a very small sample size. I really wouldn't be that worried. Numbers in previous seasons look pretty good. So I think he is the obvious one, because from an attacking point of view, like Cornet, I'm going to come on to in a minute when we talk about like the third Burnley player. I just don't think I would captain this week. So Weghorst is the only attacker I would look at. In defence, you could captain a defender, like me or Tarkowski or Roberts if you wanted to. The reason that I've put Pope on the list and none of them is I think once you're starting to look at kind of Ben Mee or James Tarkowski, I think at that point you're getting very close to kind of the attacking players from the other teams, like the Kanes, like the Sons, because they're not that great for attack and returns. Whereas someone like Nick Pope, who I have got listed, has also got save points as well. So for me, I would have Weghorst and Pope above most other players. If I didn't have either of those and I did have like a Ben Mee or someone like that, I'd possibly look at captaining him just because I always want to captain a double game week player, but I would be less kind of excited to do that, right? If we're looking at single game week players, Kane and Son's performance against Burnley would just not put me off. I think they're playing Leeds. They've just shipped 6 goals to Liverpool. Man United have scored 4 past them. Spurs can easily win that game, and if they score goals, Kane and Son will be involved. So if I wasn't going for Burnley, that is probably where I'd go. Now, the reason I wouldn't necessarily, like, if you can 100% sell yourself which Man City midfielder is going to start, and to be fair, a lot of people think that Foden, Mahrez and Sterling will all start again. Whoever you captain from those has also got a really good chance of getting points, but you just don't know how their minutes are going to get managed, whereas you know Son and Kane are almost certainly going to get played till 80, 90 minutes, and there's going to be plenty of opportunities against Leeds. So for me, it has to be Weghorst and Pope, then it's probably Kane and Son, and then it's maybe a Man United player. The only thing is Ronaldo, I'm just not sure about his minutes this week. Surely at some point he's due a rest. And I like Fernandes, I like Sancho, but I don't think they're on a par in terms of the Spurs boys this week. So that's where I'd look in. I'm going to go Weghorst. I think Pope's a good option. And if I was going to go single game week, I would probably go Kane or Son. If you want to go a little bit more punty and kind of double down on the risks, as it were, maybe a Man City midfielder. Okay, I thought about doing a little bit of a graph for Spurs because people are worried about them again, right? The question came in, there was a few of them around, what is the real Spurs? What do we think about them now after beating Man City, losing to Burnley? And in the FPL community, people are quite up and down on their thoughts. So they lose to Wolves and suddenly there's very little chatter. Do we really need to be bringing in Spurs players ahead of Man City and Burnley, right? That's not a great double. Then they beat Man City. Suddenly they're up here. They're constantly being talked about. We need them in. I have to have 2 of my free hit. Do we even think about having Kane, Son and Salah moving forward? Then they lose to Burnley and now it's right back down here again. We're suddenly worried about them. I don't think we need to be that up and down on our thoughts. Kane and Son are quality players. They will continue to get points. As I keep saying about Son, he's still over 6 points per game all season. So different managers, different tactics, different formations, different results, different outcomes. He still continues to get points. So I'm not really worried about him at all. And if I had Kane, I wouldn't be worried about him either. I know Conte is almost like blowing up. He's a very emotional and passionate manager. But I don't think it's going to affect these two really going forward, especially against Leeds and then Everton. Then a double game week, then a really good end of season fixture run as well. So I'm not worried, but I never really thought that we should be looking at getting Kane and Son in anyway. It's just too much budget to have. And realistically, who else are you even looking at, right? I think we know we can trust Kane. We know we can trust Son pretty much over a good period of time. Unless you already own a defender and are thinking of keeping them, which wouldn't be a bad decision necessarily. You're not looking to bring any in either, I would imagine. And realistically, the only other attacker is Kulusevski anyway, who I think has started, he started the last 3, played 90 minutes in both the last couple of games. The problem is, when Spurs fans, at least the few that I saw on Twitter, were questioned about Kulusevski after Man City, they kind of said he could play again, but if he plays against Burnley, you're then going to be worried about whether he plays against Leeds. And there's a chance that Lucas Moura could come in as well, right? As long as everyone's fit and available. So I don't think, like on a free hit, maybe Kulusevski is an option as a bit of a punt you could go for. But I don't think anyone's looking to put him in their teams longer term. So I think it's only really Kane and Son. So the question is, do I trust them? Yes, it's Leeds next, then it's Everton. Neither of those teams have been that good. And I know Spurs have been really inconsistent and they have lost a bunch of games recently. Burnley, Southampton, Wolves, it ain't great. Maybe they've got a bit of a problem like Man United. When you've got the ball and you have to create the chances, it's a little bit difficult than when you just counter-attack like they did. I don't know, counter-attacking is probably a little bit harsh, but in the way they played against Man City is different to how they have to play in other games. So, do I trust them? Yes. Do I think there's anyone else to buy outside of Kane and Son? No. Do I think we should have both of those players? Also no. So just pick one, stick with them, happy days. All right, good question from FPL Strategy here about the template that's forming for free hits. So whether you're on a free hit or not, you know what the template is, right? You've got like 3 Burnley players, you've got Kane, you've got Son, you've got a Man City attacker, you've got Cancelo almost certainly. That's already 7. You've probably got a Man United attacker, right? That's 8 of the 11 already kind of sorted for absolutely everyone. And I know this wasn't in the question, and I'm pretty sure FPL Strategy wouldn't be thinking like this either. I don't personally think that's a problem, by the way. If everybody free hits the same team, there's still a hell of a lot of managers that aren't using their free hit, so it's still massively beneficial. Players like Sterling and Mahrez that are being considered are really low owned, right? So it's not a bad thing to have a template necessarily, right? You want to pick the best players, and you assume that most other people do as well, right? But let's talk about some players that aren't necessarily being talked about. Now, I did do this a little bit in my free hit video, but I'll just quickly cover it again. So Ronaldo started again in the Champions League. Cavani not available. Now, whether or not he'll be available for Watford, we should get another press conference from Ralph Rangnick before. If he's not, then it does look pretty good for Ronaldo starting again. I know there's some speculation that someone else could just start up front, someone like Rashford, who has played up front under Rangnick, but I think he's only done it when there's been a 2 up front, so when he was playing with 4-2-2-2. So in this formation, where it's more of like a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, I think there's only one striker. I'm not sure if he's going to use someone else. So I think there's a chance that Ronaldo starts again. The problem is, when you're free hitting, especially with the teams that I'm seeing, there's not much room for budget or for players to be missing out, right? If Ronaldo doesn't start, that's 12.4 million of your budget wasted, and he'll probably come on for a cameo as well, maybe kind of 20, 25 minutes or something like that. So that's why I just don't see him in too many teams. I actually think if we could guarantee his minutes this week, I don't think he's a bad option. Right? It wasn't that long ago that nobody was going for Bruno Fernandes, and realistically, for a lot of people, the only reason they put him in is because it was an easy stopgap before going to Salah. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, but that is the reason that people did it. And suddenly he started getting the points, and now he's seemingly gone ahead of Ronaldo in the pecking order. But a few games recently, like Leeds and Southampton, Ronaldo absolutely could have scored in those games. So if we could guarantee his minutes, I think he's a good option. But the problem is, I don't think we can. So I guess he's not a good option, right? Bowen is definitely a decent option. If you are someone that's got Ward-Prowse or maybe Zaha in your team or someone like that, and you've got the money to go to Bowen, I'd be pretty tempted to shift to Bowen. I think he's just been so good this year. The only thing with Wolves is you just don't expect them to concede too many goals, and obviously Ward-Prowse is playing Norwich and Zaha's got Burnley. Maybe they are easier games, but I do really like Bowen. Whether or not he deserves a place ahead of Fernandes or Son or Mahrez or Sterling, that's up for debate, and I don't think he probably does. But if you're playing 3-5-2 or 5 in midfield, whichever formation you go for, then Bowen is worth it if you can afford it. I think it's just the money that's kind of putting people off this week when they try and put their teams together. Wolves might not concede too many. They also don't score too many either. So I do think Cresswell is an outside shot. Now, this is going to depend on how your team's set up. But a lot of people are looking at Man United defenders, maybe Harry Maguire, Dalot, etc. Maybe a punt on Shaw, for example, as well. Cresswell's a very similar price to a lot of them. And I don't think Wolves, again, are going to score too many goals against West Ham. A good chance of a clean sheet. And he's probably the most nailed attacking player in their team. So I don't think he's a bad shout. And I am going to strongly consider him. I think, realistically, there's probably none of these players are going to make my final 11. But Cresswell could. Elanga could be in my overall squad as well, because I do think he's going to start. Rashford played again last night, so did Sancho. I just think right now Sancho just doesn't get dropped, so it's between Elanga and Rashford. I think the fact that Elanga came on against Atletico Madrid and got the goal, I really think he's going to start this game. Whether or not I think he's good enough to kind of have in my 11, I don't know. But as an enabler on the bench, I think he's a really good option. Zaha, I just think a lot of us have got Burnley defenders, and I don't think it's bad to have attackers playing defenders necessarily. But in a week like this, where you're free hitting, you probably want to go for the upside play and just hope that Burnley get the clean sheet. In a normal week for your team, I don't think it matters, right? You just pick the best players. And if Zaha's the best attacker, and you also happen to have a Burnley defender, that's fine, right? You just hope that either they both get attacking returns or one of them goes mad and the other one blanks. But I think that would just maybe a little bit put me off Zaha this week. And Ward-Prowse, I don't know if he's being spoken about that much, really. I think most people have got Broja, maybe even looking at Adams in their team. For me, with Ward-Prowse, I just think he's too reliant on penalties. I think if he doesn't get a penalty, he doesn't bang in a free kick, which I know people say I like penalties for him, but I think he's scored on average like 1 every 18 games that he's played in the league. I just don't think he's like that exciting from open play, and I just wouldn't put him in the team. I'd rather have Broja, or I'd rather try and find the money for Bowen. So there are some other options. I don't know if you've got any other ideas, like double Man City defence could be an option while everyone else is looking at double City attack instead. But I really do think the template's formed for a reason. But there are some other players. Let me know if there's anyone not being talked about that you are putting in the comments below. Alright, so third Burnley players. If you are not on a free hit, I don't think it's worth bringing in a third Burnley player, unless maybe it's Weghorst for captaincy. But for most people, you're not going to want to carry 3 Burnley players through for kind of the next period of FPL, right? Not even necessarily to the end of the season, but 28, 29, 30. I don't think 3 Burnley players are needed. If you're on a free hit, I almost certainly would and will triple up. I think Weghorst and Pipe, as in the question, as what I said with Captaincy, are probably the 2 best options. And then you were looking at a third player. Now, for me, I think if you go for an attacker, like Cornet is touch and go, like he's got this foot problem now. He didn't start the second game with a double game week in 26. I feel like since kind of AFCON, African Cup of Nations, it feels like constantly Dyche is saying something about Cornet and his fitness and his availability and will he be ready? Will he be touch and go? He's not quite ready now. His minutes have been managed at times as well. I'm just not confident in him at all. And like I said earlier, there's a lot of single game week players with really good fixtures. So for me, the third player should probably be a defender. Now, doubling up on Burnley defence is fairly dodgy, right? They're not the greatest defence, but double game week, who knows what might happen. Even if they only get 1 clean sheet against kind of Palace and then maybe get 2 appearance points against Leicester and hopefully they don't get absolutely battered, that should be enough. So I will go for a third Burnley player and I will go for a defender. Now, Roberts has been playing a lot as the right back. My only worry is, right, and I'm just going to quickly check here before I talk rubbish. So he has started 1, 2, 3, the last 6 games, right? Ahead of Loughton, who was first choice before that. Now, Loughton is back and available now, but Roberts has kept the place. The problem is, you have to be pretty sure that's going to continue to warrant going for Roberts. He's only 0.3 less than Ben Mee and 0.4 less than Tarkowski, and I just don't know if it's worth paying that, getting that money shaved off to get a player that's maybe not 100% nailed. When that Burnley team sheet comes out, if everybody is fit and available, I know the centre-back partnership is going to be me and Tarkowski. If Loughton started ahead of Roberts, would anyone be shocked? And because of that, I just think it's too risky to go for him. Out of these 2 centre-backs, take your pick. Right, if you're someone that thinks, okay, Ben Mee's just scored a goal, therefore he definitely can't score again, which obviously is completely illogical, then go for Tarkowski. I really don't have a strong opinion either way. I've tried looking up stats, and he just hasn't really helped me at all. So Ben Mee's expected goals, and bearing in mind we're talking about centre-backs, it's not like they get loads of chances over a season, but his XG compared to Tarkowski's is... it's a little bit higher this year. In previous seasons, it hasn't been. I even looked at how many chances and stuff they've had this season. Ben Mee's had 18 shots. Tarkowski's had 16 shots. They've played pretty much the same, right? I think Tarkowski's actually played 180 minutes more this season. So the equivalent of 2 games. He's actually had just slightly fewer shots, but slightly more big chances. It's really close. I think if Ben Mee hadn't scored that goal, I probably would just stick with Ben Mee. But that might, again, it's very illogical. It's not the way you should think. Right? It's just gambler's fallacy, essentially. But I don't know if I'm going to switch now to Tarkowski. The only interesting thing is, for kind of clearances, blocks, and interceptions and stuff like that, Tarkowski is ahead of Ben Mee. That might help with bonus. But then I looked at bonus for the season. I think Ben Mee's got 3 and Tarkowski's got 4 bonus points. So it's not even like they're super high for that anyway. So honestly, just take your pick. Do you like the way one of them looks over the other one? Do you prefer saying Tarkowski for Ben Mee? Do you want to make Ben Mee jokes and say, hey, it was me that scored a goal, but hey, not really me. It was the Ben Mee for Burnley. If you want to do that, buy him. I don't really know. I don't have a strong opinion between the 2. What I do know is I wouldn't be buying the fullbacks this week, not on a free hit, and I wouldn't be going for Cornet. If you really want to take a punt, go for Dwight McNeil, but I don't like him this week either. All right, this one's very team-specific, as is said in the question. I had to say team-specific. I had to record that bit 4 times until I got it right. So happy days. Let's hope I don't mess the rest of this up. Do you have advice for people that only have 1 free hit left? So, first of all, I do only have 1 free hit left after this week, right? But obviously I've had other chips and I did have 2 up until this week. So I've not given this a huge amount of thought, but my initial instinct is you try and save it for after game week 30 because there's still a bit of an unknown in terms of exactly how all the fixtures are going to go ahead. I feel like if you build towards a team for game week in 28 and 29, a lot of those players, Arsenal, Villa, Wolves, Leeds, and every time I say Leeds, I really should just say Rafinha, right? So it's like Arsenal, Wolves, Villa, and Rafinha. they all play in game week 30 as well. So you can kind of cover yourself with probably without needing the free hit. If this week your team is in a bit of a shambles, you've got loads of Liverpool, loads of Arsenal, you could pop it and then hope for the best, but I would try and avoid doing so. So this week, if you're in a position where you haven't got 11 players, you don't really want to use it. I really don't think you can use it in double game week 28 or 29 if you've only got one. I'm not sure you should be using it in one of those anyway. Then really, Wolves players and Rafinha are probably the ones to look at. Maybe Aston Villa as well, because they play this week, they have a double game week coming up, and they play in game week 30 as well. The only thing I would say on Villa players is Ramsey's an okay enabler. Coutinho's probably the best attacker, but Watkins and Ings now, you don't really think that either of those is nailed, so they're a little bit of a worry. And also Villa's kind of fixtures from game week 30 to like 32, 33 are not that great, so you don't necessarily want to be stuck with loads of them long term, so it's going to depend on how many you've already got. So I think Rafinha, I know he's playing Spurs, but he's an okay option to bring in. Otherwise you go for a Wolves defender or maybe Jimenez playing West Ham. Again, it's not ideal, but you've only got one free hit, so it's not necessarily an ideal situation to start with. They would then have a double game week. They've then got fairly good fixtures, and they play in game week 30 as well. So that's probably what I would do. In terms of exactly when you're going to use it, game week 33 could be useful, game week 36 could be useful. It depends when you're using your other chips if you've still got them, right? If you've got like a bench boost and you're thinking of using that in game week 36, you can't use your free hit as well. Yeah, so if you've got a team for this week and then it looks okay for 28 or 29, you could use it in game week 30. But ideally, you just get through this period, you target the teams I just mentioned, and then you see where you need it after game week 30 and go from there. If anyone else is on one free hit, no wildcard strategies, let us know in the comments below what you're doing, and then people can check that out and maybe get some advice from that as well. So this question is it worth taking Salah out for a week if you're on a game week 28 wildcard? And that distinction is important, right? If you are not sure if you're going to wildcard in game week 28, or you're definitely not going to wildcard in game week 28, do not sell Salah, because you are going to need him, right? And apparently the guy can score points. Who would have known, right? If I'd known he was going to score 28 points in game week 26, I would have probably triple capped him, but no one told me, so there we go. But do not sell him. If you are definitely wildcarding in game week 28, like 100% certain it's going to happen, you could sell Salah. Now, one of the reasons to do that is you've got maybe Liverpool and Arsenal players on your bench, and rather than sell a player with a bad fixture, it's better. Like, for example, Josh King. Okay, whether or not he's available or not, we'll have to wait and see. Let me give you a better option, like Dennis, right, playing Man United away. Maybe you don't really want to play him. You think that Dennis can cause Man United problems, but you're not 100% happy about it. He hasn't. I think he's got like one goal in the last 7 game weeks or something like that. You may be better off selling Salah to bring in the player you want and just benching Dennis. So at least you've got a player on the bench just in case somebody misses out. But it's all going to depend on who you want, right? If you want a midfielder, perfect, you sell him. Maybe you get Son or Fernandes or Sancho and someone like that, and then you wildcard him back in. There's very little downsides to doing this, and I actually think the fact that you are spending a lot of your budget on bringing a good player in for this week is probably really worthwhile. The only reason you wouldn't want to do it is because you're maybe going to lose money on him. So that's going to depend on when you bought him. So for example, if I look at my team really quickly, I can't check because I'm on free hit, but if you got him for say 12.9 million and he's gone up to 13.1, then you're only going to actually lose 0.1 million by selling him and then getting him back. You would assume his price isn't going to rise before game week 27. It could rise before game week 28 as people buy him in, but as long as money's not tight for your potential game week 28 wildcard, I would really seriously think about doing it. It's a lot of money to have on your bench, and for some people it's the right move. But if you can get in one of those players I mentioned, Fernandes, Son, maybe even a Man City midfielder as a punt, right, as well, then yeah, I would definitely do it. But only if you're 100% certain that you're wildcarding in game week 28. All right, this is a good question, right? I mean, it's around free hit, but you could say it's basically a good question at any point, right? So how much does current form affect player picks on a free hit as opposed to long-term stats? I got to be honest, when I'm picking my free hit team, I'm not really looking at the numbers that much this week because I just feel like we already know who all the good players are and all the good fixtures, and it kind of picks itself to a certain extent, at least 7 to 8 players. It's just the last few that maybe are a little bit trickier. I would say that long-term stats are always important, right? Always. And I think expected data, XG, expected assists as well. I hate saying XA, by the way. I say XG, but XA doesn't sound right. So I always say XG and then expected assists, never expected goals and expected assists. Anyway, that's a slight tangent, right? But that's probably the best stats to use. Whatever stats you use in longer sample size is better. That's why I'm not worried about Kane and Son, as I said earlier on in the video. If they've got good fixtures, I know what their long-term numbers are like. The points will pretty much come. Now, whether you take form into account is a whole different question. I'm not a big fan of choosing players based on form. I'm not saying there's nothing in it. I'm not saying that, you know, scoring a few goals doesn't make a player more confident. Whether that translates into getting into better positions, taking better shots and stuff like that, that's probably up for debate, and it probably doesn't happen. But you could look at that, right? So Sterling, for example, scoring a few goals recently, maybe he's a better pick than Foden. But long term, if I was picking again, I probably would just choose Foden, right? Because he's cheaper. So on free hit, you can look at it if that's what suits your style best and stuff like that. But long-term stats and then fixtures, which are always based on long-term stats as well, so we know who the worst teams are, for me is always kind of the best way of picking players. It also takes out a lot of kind of, you know what I was saying earlier about the Spurs players, where it's like, right, we're not talking about them at all. Now suddenly we need to, and now we're not talking about them again. It kind of takes that out of the equation. You're not so up and down on players all the time. So that's why I was also saying that I think we're writing Ronaldo off. Now, if it's because you think his minutes are a worry, fair enough. But if it's because you think he's just a bad player now and the Fernandes is better because of form, I'm not sure that is necessarily true. So I don't think it's a bad thing thinking about form. I don't, maybe subconsciously I do, it does play a part, but that's not really how I do it. So I don't, if Son and Kane hadn't smashed it against Man City and they also blanked against Burnley, which they did, and Wolves, which they did, I would still be having both of them in my free hit team this week. So ultimately for me, it doesn't really affect my thinking. For a lot of people it does. Whether or not you think that's a good thing, only you can decide. But long-term stats, in my opinion, always the best way to do it. There we go. Hopefully that was useful. If it was, give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I know there was a bit of free hit stuff in there, but hopefully it was helpful whether you're on a free hit or not. Spoiler alert, my team selection video tomorrow will also be a free hit video because I'm on free hit, right? Normal service will resume from Game Week 28. And guess what? I'm not wildcarding, but I'll do a wildcard video. So I've always got you covered, but this week you are going to have to put up with a bit of free hit stuff. So yeah, team selection tomorrow. Don't forget to check out NordVPN if you haven't already. Link in the description below, nordvpn.com/letstalkfpl. Exclusive deal there for you as well. Money back guarantee after 30 days if you're not happy as well. So it's kind of risk-free, decent VPN, which can be very helpful when you're online. I'll leave it there. I'll see you tomorrow for team selection. Thank you very much for watching.